Good morning, everybody. Pam was just giving me the signal to talk, and I'm wandering around the workshop. Never mind, we're here. Good morning, everybody, and I hope you're all having a lovely morning. I noticed on the chat that everybody's cold, and Steve, I don't know about a heater in a wood workshop. That's not an air conditioner, yes, but not a diesel heater. Ooh, that could be fun. Anyhow, today. So what we're going to do today is this is our last day for this project. So we'll be having a bit of a break, and then we'll get back when we've got a new project up and running. Pam's got a couple in mind. So we'll have to think about what we're going to do. But anyway, today what I want to do is just go over what we've done with the Apothecary chest. Actually, I got that word right today. So we'll go over what happened, how it all came about, and all that sort of stuff, and then we'll go through how it was built and so forth. So we'll do that very quickly. So I'm not gonna spend hours and hours at it. It all started. One of our viewers, our regular viewers, Aussie suggested, and if you have a look there, you'll see Aussie's name up. Suggested an Apothecary chest and sent me a photo and all that sort of stuff. And Pam's gone, yeah, I wouldn't mind one of those. And so she's given me this little piece of pink paper. Now, I showed you this a couple of weeks ago. So it started there, basically. And I did a bit of research and had a look around for different things. And between the two of us, we came up with this design. So it came onto the whiteboard. So we got the whiteboard out, we did a bit of drawing, a bit of designing, threw some ideas around and came up with that. Right. Now, during the process of actually building that bit, we then had to do some information about the drawers. So that meant getting another whiteboard and going through and doing all the drawers. Lots of information, just add it all up and put it together, figure out how big we want the drawers and so forth, and eventually we've come up with this. Now it's not exhaustive. We could have added a lot more detail, a lot more information, and we could have got another whiteboard and gone through a whole heap more, but we didn't. And then it came to doing the knobs on the drawers. So we had to come up with a design for the knobs. So as you can see, we've done quite a bit of research and quite a bit of work on actually drawing, designing, working through different techniques, different shapes and designs to get ourselves to that result. Now, in the process of actually building this, and this is what we've ended up with, in the process of building this, we've used quite a number of different jigs. So the framework is built with the B10 dovetail jig, and then it came to building the drawers. How big do we want the drawers? How thick do we want the drawers? And this was part of that research that we did. That's part of the research that we did on the whiteboards, was how big everything was and what size dovetails and so forth. Now, the A10 dovetail jig was the same size as this, but because of the depth of the drawer, we had to go to the jumbo jig, which has a wider spacing between the dovetails, and it works quite well. So we had to go to that. Well, that wouldn't work on the smaller drawers. The smaller drawers, we had to have a smaller dovetail. So we went with the H20, which is the smallest of our jigs, and came up with that size there. Now the middle-sized drawers were somewhere in between, so we stuck to the jumbos with that one as well. So as you can see, laid out quite nicely. You've got a nice little a number of dovetails on there, and it fits the whole project. So that's where it came to. And now, once we've built the whole thing and put the whole thing together, what we have to do now is put a finish on. Now, as you can see, I've already put a finish on the inside of the box, inside of the framework. All of the supports and dividers are all been done, and I've also put a finish on the drawers, and you can see that the colour on the drawers looks absolutely stunning, and the hewing's come up really, really nicely. Like I said to you before, the timber that we've used here is hew and pine for the whole project, rather than using cheaper timber for the drawer frames and the internal componentry that's not seen on a cabinet. We've used hew and pine for the whole project because it's something that's going to stay in our house forever and a day, I suppose. Anyhow, now the last little bit of work we have to do, let's put these out of the way, is put some finish on. Now, the finishing process, we've got stuff everywhere today. The finishing process is not just a simple process of just getting a whole lot of finish and slapping it on and then hoping it looks good. Finishing is probably one of the most tedious jobs that you'll ever do, because you have to sand things to get them to the right finish on the top, so they're nice and smooth and all that sort of thing. And going through the different processes of finishing are quite tedious. So you need to have a bit of patience when you do this. You've got to remember that your finish, it's the last thing you're going to do to the job, but it's the first thing that anybody's ever going to see when they look at the job. So when you look at something, you say, oh gee, it's got a lovely finish, it looks really, really nice. And that's what people are going to judge your work on, is how well that's finished. So make the effort to spend time and finish correctly. Now, when I finish, I remove all my rough bits and pieces like that with a coarse sandpaper, and then I work down through a whole heap of grades. Now, I won't go through that because it's pretty tedious just talking about it, let alone doing it. Get it as smooth as you can. I finish off with 800 grit, so it's nice and smooth all around. I've done the whole box, the frame, the back of the box has been done, the other side has been done. I've already put a finish on the bottom because I don't want to start tipping this upside down and trying to finish it on the show. So first things to do is to put a coat of finish on. Now, the finish I'm using.
Could I interrupt for a moment, Col?
Yes, you can, Pamela.
Dr. George wants to know what's the rationale for the HAB numbering of the templates. And I mean, we just inherited all of this lettering and numbering system.
Yes, we did. George, I have no idea. I know the F stands for finger joints. I think A means it was the first one. A and B was the second one. So we had the B template. The A template was for the small boxes where you're using material between 5 and 13 mil. The B template was probably the second one, so you go A, B in the alphabet, of course. And the B is for the thicker materials. So most people start with smaller stuff, then they go to bigger stuff. And then the H,
we don't know where that came from.
I don't know where that came from,
yeah.
But I know the F stands for finger joints. So
yeah.
The F15 is a finger joint jig. So
if you think of it like this, I always, when I'm listing them, I always go HAB. I go from the tiny one to the big one. And then just to confuse the issue, we have two sizes of H, and we have two sizes of A. But one of those is a jumbo template. But you can get that closer finish, you know, like closer joints or wider joints in our cutters. So they do transfer across to the jumbo. So yeah, I mean, there's a grid. If you need an explanation to actually look at it in a graph form, go onto our website, onto any jig package, have a look at the right hand side where it says jig specifications, tap that, and there it's all laid out for you. Yeah, it can be a bit confusing, but that table on the website is a very useful guide for the specifications of each template and what cutter is used. So use that as your fundamental guide when you're ringing up asking for a template or new cutters and you just don't know what you do, don't know what you're asking for. Use the timber thickness range as a guide for what template you need and what cutters you need. So I hope that helps, George. It will probably help a lot of other people too for you asking. Thank you. Okay, back to the tedious stuff.
Okay, I hope you got a bit out of that one. It's always been a thought, but when I asked Roger about it once before, he really didn't know either, and he's the one that invented it. So
yeah, so we didn't move from there because it was so well established by the time we bought it, that it was just much easier to leave it as it was. Yeah. It's like the Gifkins name when we bought the business. Why would you change the business name? So we just kept everything the same.
Yeah.
Had lots of followers who are already established with this system. So. Yeah.
So what I'm doing here, this is the Constantia finish. And all I'm doing is I'm brushing this on. Now I'm doing this at the beginning of the show because I'm going to let it sit, because when I'm using this stuff, I like to brush it on and let it sit for an hour or so and let the timber absorb it, soak it up. Hewn pine is an oil-based timber. It tends to soak up a fair bit of this sort of thing. You'll see, as I've painted it, it's actually become very shiny. It's only the shine because of the finish, because it's wet. And by the end of the show, we should be able to show you exactly how much it's soaked in.
You can see the relationship between the front and the back with that wave pattern at the top of the back that you just painted there. Yeah. All those colour stripes through it, they're all basically coming off the same tree, which is beautiful.
And the end grain of all of the dovetails actually sits up. You can see how they stand out.
Well, they can't. They can't see that.
You can on the thing. This. The difference in the colour.
Oh, right. Stand up. I thought you meant stand up. No. Sorry.
Now, some people don't particularly like the look of dovetails on projects, but that's okay. It's all a matter of taste. Just got a little bit on the bench there. I'm not too concerned about the bench because this stuff is an oil. It hasn't got any dryers in it, so it's not going to stain anything. You'll notice that I tend to spend most of the brush strokes with the grain, apart from across the end there. It allows the brush fibres to actually get into the grain structure. Now, the Constantia doesn't have any dries in it, so it's not going to dry on me. If it does look a little bit dry, it's because the timber has soaked it up.
And so Aussie's asking, are there any plans for this project yet? No, Aussie, it's a bit too soon yet because our our friend that had the double transplant is the person that actually draws the plans for us. And he's still in recuperation, and so he's got a whole stack of plans to do for us. And so we don't know when this plan will be drawn.
I've got it all up here, that Aussie.
Yeah, that's no help. Not at the moment.
So I'm just going over, I'm just looking for the bits that soak it up a little quicker. Some years ago I built a Lazy Susan to actually do a lot of our photographing on. Perfect for this job. If you stand it in one spot instead of having to walk around it or turn it over. You can already see in little patches, I don't know if you can see it on the camera there, there's little patches where it started to soak up.
No, I don't know whether we can see that.
No.
Yeah.
Bit difficult to see, but I can. It's just the way the grain structure is on the timber. Okay, so I'm going to let that sit there. At the end of the show I'm going to wipe off the excess, and then I'll probably put another coat on after the show to give it a bit of a workout. So that's Constantia Chinese wood oil.
So you use this one instead of the red oil coal?
Yes, I don't want to use the red oil. The red oil will tint various parts of the grain where it's a bit tighter together, and I don't want to do that with this. I want to keep it as clean as and pristine as possible,
and natural to
the true colours of the timber. So I think if I used the red, I'd probably use the red on something like rose mahogany or a red gum or cedar or something like that, where some of the darker bits you want highlighted a little bit on the timber. This I don't. This has got to be relatively clean without any sort of added tints. So
we do have a project where we could use the red coming up,
yep.
And there's every possibility it'll be a sewing machine table for me.
Another one.
Yes, got to keep me happy.
Okay, so that's that bit. Now, once we've done that, I did that to all of the little boxes. Now, they've all had their extra coats, and these ones here I've actually waxed. Oh, that one doesn't even feel like it's been waxed. Yes, this one's been waxed. You can feel the difference between the two. I don't know if you can see any difference. This one hasn't been waxed and this one has. There seems to be a bit more of a sheen on this one, yeah, than that one there, and that's just because it's been waxed.
Yeah.
And so this is how I go about waxing them. The wax that I'm using, again, is a Constantia product, and it's just a furniture wax and a clean wax, and I'll actually wax one of the bigger ones. Let's get into this one here. This one hasn't been done. Now, the first task that I do before I wax it, now this has had 2 coats of Chinese wood oil on it. I put the first coat on, I let it settle like I've done with the cabinet there at the moment. I wipe the excess off, then I gave it a second coat after a couple of hours. Let that settle for a little while, wipe the excess off, and then you can see that it's a very flat looking finish on it. It's not all that glossy, or it doesn't have that luster that you would get. You can see a little bit of it, but when you get light reflection on it, it doesn't look as nice as it could do. So this is how I go about doing the waxing. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to put a pair of gloves on for this, or a glove, if I can find it. I had one. It's over there. Never mind. It's just one of those one-time gloves. Now I have 2000 grit paper. Okay, it's 2000 grit, and what I want to do is denib. Last week, Gary Wilkes said to us, "What does that finish raise the grain?" Yes, it does. If you put anything wet on a piece of timber, you will raise the grain. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to give that a light coat of finish. And then 2000 grit sandpaper. And basically polish it. Now 2000 grit paper will just take all those little nibs off where the grain has been raised, and it'll make it nice and smooth. Go around the edges. Now, I'm not going to do the whole box, I'm just going to do the front. Around the outside edges. Now, because I've sanded that, and it's just, you can use 1000 grit sandpaper if you like, but 2000 is adequate to get rid of the little nibs. And then a piece of rag, and we just wipe the excess off. Now if you want, you could just leave that like that. Depends on what you want to do. Finishing is all about experimenting and finding your level, finding what you like. Sometimes you'll find that if you go outside the box a little bit, you may find you get a different result. One that you don't like or one that you do like. So doing a little bit of experimenting, and this is, as I said earlier in the piece, a little bit of patience goes a long way. So now we have a nice smooth surface. So my next task is to wax it. Now I'll do this, I use a little tool, little MIRKA orbital sander. The pad that I'm using there is just a little sponge applicator. Bigfoot, it's made by Rupees, and you can buy these at the big red store. They're very expensive, unfortunately, and they're Velcro fitted, so it fits straight onto my little MIRKA, and then I can turn my thing on. Okay, so now I'll just applicate. This is the wax. Okay, so just ordinary furniture wax. Yep, got the focus, and that's what it looks like inside there. It's not a liquid, it's actually a paste. And I put a little bit on the bottom of the pad. All I'm doing is working that into where I've sanded everything.
So Colin, you just keep with the sanding and the wet sanding, you just keep doing it until you get a very smooth result.
Yeah.
So whatever.
You've got to have a smooth result to work your waxing.
Yeah. So whatever the box maker prefers to do is fine. But if you're looking for a really high quality finish, it just takes that many more parts of the process.
Yes. Yeah. With the grain. Japanese Tools in Sydney sell these. So if you want to get one, there's a link to his store below. Now, I have a secondary one too. This one's a little bit bigger. And this one here I have a lamb's wool pad on. Now I've got a smaller one that I can put on here if I want. I'm just going to let that sit for a couple of secs. I can take that off and I can put a little lamb's wool pad on there, like so. And I can polish it with the lamb's wool pad afterwards. And all I'm doing is polishing off the wax, the excess. Building up a little bit of heat. And you can see I've got, it's a flat finish, but it has a luster to it when you get the light reflection on it. This timber doesn't show up this much, but here's a bigger version. The big one, or I can do it with the small one, it doesn't really matter. Now, when you look at the finish on it now, you can see the light reflection on it. It actually, down here, the shadow disappears, and you get this lovely.
Well, it's a bit hard to see.
You can see that. But the surface is absolutely glass smooth when you feel it, but yet it doesn't look glass smooth. So that's what I'll do with the whole box. So getting through all of those, it's going to take me a little while to do all the boxes, but I'm not going to do them all on the show. So that's just one. Now I've done that to most of the small boxes. The next step is to put the liners in the bottom. So I'll put all this stuff aside. Now with the liners in the bottom, I'll just get rid of those junks so that I can see my way around what's happening here. Don't forget the link to CONSTANTIA below. Anybody who buys $50 or more worth of product will get a discount, and you'll also get a sample pot of any other product that you want as well. Okay, let's get rid of that and that. Now, the bottoms of the boxes. For this exercise, what I want to do is, Pam and I spoke about this earlier. Often what people do is they'll just leave the raw bottom in the box, depending on what you're actually putting in it. Because this one's will end up being a sewing machine accessory box. We want a nice coloured bits and pieces in the bottom of it, and something with a little bit of padding in it. So that's what's going to happen with the boxes. Now we have in our range of self-adhesive baize a number of different colours. Okay, so I think there's another one, but we tend not to carry it because it's not popular. The ones that we have, the most popular one of course is a red. For all the Queenslanders we've got maroon. For all the New South Welshmen we've got blue. There's black for those in between, and green for those golfers around the place. So there's a different colour for everybody. And red for those people who like little bright colours. Anyway, that's the way I look at it. So, there's one other thing that we do, that I'm doing with this box as well, and that's I'm covering it with a piece of leather. Now, we don't carry leather, we don't sell it, I don't even know where to get it from when we're up here in Coffs Harbour. But what I've done is I've covered one piece with a piece of kangaroo leather. That's what the kangaroo leather looks like. It's quite thin, it's pretty colour, and it looks quite nice in the box. I just found the right number box for it. It's number 5. These are all numbered, by the way, and this is the piece for there, and so that's what we end up with. Nice piece of leather in the bottom of the box. Okay, so, and it's removable, so we can take it out if we want to. I have seen quite a few specialty people who actually glue that to the bottom of the box or glue it into the lid of the box, and it's there for keeps. Hard to get out if you want to clean it, hard to get out if you want to change the colour, hard to get out if you want to discard it, those sorts of things. So attaching it to a piece of 3-ply means it can go in there quite easily and looks quite nice. So that's what we're going to do. Now, making the pieces. We need a piece of 3-ply. Now, you can pick that up at Bunnings fairly cheaply. This is number 5. I had one to make, and shift these out of the way. If you've been watching my shows regularly, you will probably have seen me do this task many times, so I'll do it again for those who are newbie. So, piece of 3-ply. What I want to do is, first of all, I'm going to square it up. So I've got a square edge along here, so I just need to square one end of it, and then we'll measure and cut it to size. So over to the drop saw. So first thing first, square up one end. And then cut my piece to length using that square edge. Just put a mark on there. Now the secret to doing this is don't stick it in the box while you're trying to get it to fit, otherwise you never get it out. So I want it to fit, it fits perfectly there. Okay, now I need to cut a bit off the side of it because it's too wide. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to trim up one end. That's the end I've cut there. Just trim up one edge. That will help me keep it square. Beautiful there. Now I'll just take the other side off. A little measurement there. I'm using, for those of you who can't see or haven't seen this before, I'm using the laser on the saw. And it fits in pretty good there. And it's pretty good there. Okay, so over to the bench. And I need to get a few things sorted here. First of all, I need this piece of sandpaper. So I'm just going to sand the furry edges off it. Now when I'm fitting my baize to the panel, I choose the worst side to stick the baize to. The other side, it's got a couple of little marks in it. If we've stuck the baize to it, you can't actually see it, so good way around that. Okay, now, as I said, we've got all these different colours, so I'm going to do a red one first. And all I need is a piece that's going to be big enough to fit onto there. So a piece of that, a pair of scissors. So this red is actually big enough to do 2.
You could also draw around that as a template, couldn't you?
Could do, yes. Okay, it's pretty easy stuff to do. You'll notice that, see that how it's all folded and it looks a bit ordinary. Once you take the backing off it, and stretch it out over the piece of timber, make sure it fits on so you've got an overlap all round. So now it's nice and smooth and flat. Just needs a little bit of a blow off and a bit of duster to get it to fit. And then Stanley knife. You have the Stanley knife here. And trim along the edge. It only takes, they're very quick to do, so they don't take long at all. The beauty about them on a piece of plywood is it's just a piece of plywood, and if you don't like it, you're only throwing away a little piece of plywood. You're not actually throwing away a good quality piece of timber. So we have that there. Next step is to put a tag on it so you can get it out. Now, if you go along to Spotlight, you can actually purchase all sorts of different bits of ribbon that match all our colours. So that's our green for the golfers, the blue for the New South Welshmen, maroon for the Queenslanders, red for the blokes who, people who like pretty, and black for, yeah, whatever. So matching it up, little piece of red, and the scissors again. Just take a little piece off. A bit of super glue. So I'll just put a little bit of super glue on here. Don't need a lot. Put that on like so. And I'll put a little bit of glue on the end of here as well. It does two things. Number one, it creates a little, like a little plastic knob that you can actually grab a hold of because of its thickness. The other thing, it stops the end of the material from fraying. We then get a bit of masking tape, a bit of tape. A little piece of tape. And I just tape that down. Now I don't generally take the tape off, I just leave it on there because, as I said, it's just something that I use. Wipe a bit of the excess off the front bit. And there's our little tag, and so that should fit into box number 5. And there you have this lovely red insert into the box. So that basically finishes the box off, or the drawers off I should say, and you do a number of them. Now I've cut a piece of ply for all of my other boxes there. I'm not going to cover them all. It'll just take forever to do so, but though eventually it will happen. So just the two different ones there, you can see the ply and the leather and the baize. Depending on the choice of what you want to do with it, it's up to you. So, or up to your customer. Actually, you've got to take care of your customer. You may not like what you've come up with, but your customer may love it. So it's always a matter of listening to your customer. Okay, let's get this stuff out of the way. So where are we up to now? Got junk everywhere. Little workshop syndrome. Keep that piece because I can make a second one out of the red. Okay, next step. This has been here for about 3/4 of an hour now. So I'm going to wipe off the excess. And I've got, you can see my rags are actually, they've already got a bit of oil on them, and that's from doing all the other bits. But I don't know if you can see, I'm just trying to get a bit of light on the sides there. There are patches where, and it's generally where the open grain is, where you can see them here a little darker than normal.
You can see them better on the top actually.
You can see them on the top?
Stop moving.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here?
Yeah.
Just there, you can see that right through there, it's gone all dry.
There, and then there's one a little bit near the middle.
Oh yes, here. So that's gone all dry because it's soaked all the finish in around the open parts of the pores on the grain. So what happens is now I'm just going to wipe with the grain. If you don't sand it properly, if you don't go through the process of using the coarse sandpapers and go right through to the fine sandpapers, you'll find that every little mark will show up. And that looks really ordinary on a beautifully made piece. And if you've spent a fair amount of time, the amount of time that we've taken to make this one, if you've spent a lot of time making it, and you have to refinish or resand because your sanding isn't good enough, it really takes the sting out of, or the excitement out of a finished piece. Okay, dry a piece of rag. Just making sure I wipe all the excess off. It still feels wet. Okay, now and inspect to see that I haven't got any sandpaper marks, any rough bits that I haven't repaired, any pencil marks, and you can see that everything looks pretty perfect. The colour and it's just spectacular. Now you also have, remember that during the process of actually building this, I had to repair some pieces, and you can't see any of those repairs on this cabinet at all from any perspective. Where I had cracks and splits and things like that, I've managed to be able to put them in a position where they're not actually seen. They're not going to fall apart because they're really well fitted together, but they're going to look quite nice. Okay, so now another coat. So we go back to our finish. I'm not going to sand it for the second coat. What I want to do is I want to make sure that the timber has soaked up as much as it can in the finish, of the finish I should say. before I actually start looking at raising the sanding off before waxing or sanding the finish. Sometimes you may need to do this 3 or 4 times to actually help the timber soak up the finish. Once it's soaked up enough and you don't get any of those little dry patches, then you can let it settle for a couple of days, and then wet sand if you like, or you can dry sand it, it won't hurt it. I prefer to wet sand it because it gives you a bit of lubricant for your sandpaper, which is always helpful. I love the finish when it comes up nicely, and it just makes a piece. It makes all your efforts worth it. And when people look at your work, they go, "Oh, that's nice." They really should be looking at the quality of your craftsmanship if you really think about it. But it's the finish that actually attracts them. Colours of the timber. Back. It's a beautiful piece of hewing on the back, isn't it?
Mm. It came off the same piece that was used for the front.
Correct. It's the other side of the front bit. Okay, so that's going to sit for another hour before I actually do any more to it. I just want that to soak in really nicely. I'm not doing all the front part here because it's already been done, and I had the same process with the whole thing. You can see the colours in that hue and pine are just stunning. Incidentally, if you're if you want to purchase any of the pieces that I make,
Except for this one.
Except for this one, I can make another one. That's not a problem. I've got all the ideas in my head. And I can draw up. I've got quite a lot of the information that I've done with the Apothecary chest. But even with the small boxes and things like that, by all means, I'm happy to make people little projects. You just need to contact me and we'll talk about prices and things like that, because not everything is going to be exactly the same price, depending on the timber, depending on what's wanted in the box and all that sort of stuff. So I can do that. It's not a problem. So we'll go from there. Now, the other thing that I wanted to do is I wanted to show you how I fitted the leather piece to the leather. So you can actually get it out. Put it on the tag. How I fitted that piece of leather there. So I've got a few minutes left before the end of the show. So I'll go through that process. Now, I found that the thin leather is probably the best. You can get it nice and thick, but this is really thin leather. In a past life, I made a few yard whips for a couple of stockmen that I knew, and this is some of the leftover stuff that I had. So it's just a matter of, first of all, cut yourself a piece of leather. So I want a piece there. So this excess off here we don't need. I may end up using these, I may not. Depends what Pamela wants when she has it. It's all finished. Okay, so I've got those pieces. Now to glue that to there, we need some sort of contact cement. Alright, so keep backing up, Pammy. So all we do, I'm going to sit down, and I have, now this may not work basically because I broke the top off it when I pulled it apart before. So high strength spray adhesive. So let's give it a shot and see if it works. Oh yeah. A little bit there. Actually I won't stick that on there because I've already put the glue on it. Let's give it another bit. Okay, now normally you'd let that sit until it goes all dry and then you put the two pieces together. I don't have time to do that today, so we're going to just do it straight away. It will stick, it's not a problem. Put that on there. So, put that over there. Another piece of wood on the ground. Messy clamps. Now if you want you can put greaseproof paper in between all the parts so they don't stick together, but we've run out of time, so I've not done that. So in about 5 minutes time that one should be dry enough to be able to trim up. So just shift this out of the way. And I've got enough left over for another one if I want to do another one. So it's a matter of just going to get some of that. You may know someone who's into leather crafts, who's able to access the leather. I generally I bought this many years ago, and it was an afterthought just for today's show, to show you that you can actually use nice thin leather as well. The piece itself is actually quite thin. It's not as thick as the baize covered ones. So when you look at it, very thin piece. And when you have the baize bits, it just looks a little bit thinner. So yeah, just a little bit more on the base. But yeah, so that's how we go. Okay, so that's it for today.
Put the drawers back in.
Put the drawers back in. Oh, but not yet. We're still wet.
On the inside of the box. On the.
Oh no. They can go back in.
That's what I say. Put the drawers back in.
I think that was number 5. Number 2. I've numbered all the back of these so that they go in the right spot. Number 3. Number 4. I've polished all of these right up to the number 4. Got to do that one. 2. And it's just a matter of doing all the internals for all of these. 3. Number 1. Of course, the last one. Okay, so what I might do is I might wipe off the excess so that you can see what it's going to look like when it's finished. Wipe off all this excess finish. And always put another coat on afterwards.
Okay, can you move it forward for me?
Yeah. This will get a good, actually I think I might put another coat on it later, just so that you can see what it looks like as a finished product. The grain on that is just stunning, let alone the colours of the grain.
The camera doesn't really give you a true indication of the depth of colour in it. It tends to white out at times, and so there's a richness to it that you can't really, that the camera doesn't really capture. It really depends on the angle. The lighting in the workshop's not brilliant, but that's probably better. But it is actually a couple of tones deeper than what you can actually see. Nonetheless, it's still absolutely gorgeous. I love it.
So that's it for today, folks. That's it for this project. We will let you know when we've got another project sorted. And that's what it will look like sitting on the bench. Quite a cute little cabinet.
Thank you, Colin. It's beautiful.
So I hope you enjoyed this project. I actually enjoyed doing it. I've never made an apothecary chest before. It's a first for me. Probably won't be my last, I don't think. But it's only a small one, and probably the next one might even be twice the size. So we'll see what happens in the future. But that's it for the apothecary chest. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learnt something from it. If you want to ask more questions, by all means email me. I will happily, or even call me on the phone.
Yeah.
So I'm happy to talk to people about the projects we do. If you want one made, by all means, like I say, give me a call. We can work through a different price for it. Probably won't get one out of hewn because there's a fair bit of hewn in that, and it's a fairly expensive timber to get hold of. So yeah, but we can always talk about different timbers and things like that. So don't forget, if you haven't subscribed to our channel, please do so. Go to live when you go into our channel, and you'll get all of the projects that we've done in the past, and of course this one here. So have a good week, everybody. I will see you all in a few weeks time.
Next.
Well,
yeah.
we'll see how long it takes before we get the new project up and running. So I'll have to do some, I tend to like to do a lot of research before we do the projects, so that I've got everything and you get a good overview of everything that goes on with the different projects. So however long it takes me to research it, maybe build one or two of them, depends on how long it will be before we're back again. So have a good one, everybody, and I will see you all
in a couple of weeks.
In a couple of weeks' time.